The arena was older than memory. Not just ancient, enduring. It had been carved into the bedrock of Karzun long before humans learned to shape stone, before the great alien empires had learned to shape stars. Its walls were obsidian black, veined with glowing crimson lines that pulsed like the slow heartbeat of a slumbering god. Above, a transparent energy dome revealed the sky, a violent swirl of copper clouds and lightning that never quite struck. Every seat was filled. Alien nobles, warriors, scholars, and conquerors from 100 species watched in silence as blood soaked into the sand below. At the center of the arena, a woman stood tall, breathing evenly, her posture flawless despite the carnage around her. General Kael'thara of the Virex Dominion. She was death-given form, 4 arms, lean and powerful, armored plates grown directly from her exoskeleton. Her eyes glowed a cold, predatory amber. In her hands she held twin phase blades, their edges humming softly as they cut through the air itself. At her feet lay a human. Motionless. Broken. Commander Jonah Reed stared at the sky through one half-swollen eye, tasting iron and dust. His ribs screamed with every shallow breath. His left arm refused to respond at all. The arena sand beneath him was darkened with his blood. The crowd believed it was over. Kael'thara believed it was over. She lifted one blade and pointed it toward the stands in a traditional Virex salute. "The challenge is complete," she declared, her voice amplified across the arena. "The human has fallen. Let history record this moment." A low, thunderous cheer rolled through the audience. Humans were new to the galactic stage. Loud, stubborn, and painfully fragile. The Virex Dominion had demanded a demonstration of strength before accepting humanity as anything more than a vassal species. Jonah Reed had volunteered. Not because he was the strongest, but because he was expendable. "Stay down," his body screamed. "You're done." His vision blurred, flickering between the copper sky and memories that refused to stay buried. Earth. A blue horizon seen from orbit. A small apartment with a flickering light and a voice saying, "Come back alive." He coughed, blood splattering onto the sand. Kael'thara turned her back on him. That was her mistake. "Wait." The sound was soft. Human. Almost lost beneath the crowd's noise. But it carried. Kael'thara froze. Slowly she turned her head. Jonah's fingers twitched. Then curled into the sand. With a sound somewhere between a groan and a laugh, he rolled onto his side. The crowd fell silent. "Impossible," someone hissed from the stands. Jonah planted his good hand beneath him. Pain flared, white-hot, blinding, but he welcomed it. Pain meant he was still conscious. Pain meant he could still choose. Kael'thara stared at him, her amber eyes narrowing. "You cannot stand," she said. "Your internal injuries alone." "Yeah," Jonah interrupted hoarsely. "I know." He pushed. His legs shook violently. One nearly buckled. Blood dripped freely from a gash above his brow, running down his cheek and off his chin. But somehow, he stood. Not straight, not proud, but upright. And then, to the utter confusion of the galaxy's most feared general, Jonah Reed smiled. It was not a warrior's grin. It was tired, crooked, human. Kael'thara felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest. "Fear. You should be dead," she said. Jonah wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. "Funny thing," he replied. "People keep telling us that." The crowd erupted, not in cheers but in uneasy murmurs. This was not how duels ended. This was not how humans were supposed to behave. Kael'thara took a step forward, blades raised once more. "The duel is decided," she snapped. "Yield." Jonah shook his head slowly. "Can't." "Why?" she demanded. He met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw something behind his eyes that wasn't desperation. Resolve. "Because if I stay down," he said, voice trembling but steady, "everything after this is slavery with nicer words." Silence fell like a blade. Kael'thara studied him anew. Not as prey. Not as an inferior. As a problem. You are broken, she said quietly. Yep. You cannot win. Probably not. Then why? She pressed. Jonah took a staggering step forward. Because someone has to show you what enough looks like. Something shifted in Kael'thra's mind. She attacked. The world exploded into motion. Her blades struck with surgical precision, cutting air where Jonah had been a heartbeat earlier. He moved on instinct alone, rolling, stumbling, barely avoiding blows that should have ended him instantly. Each impact sent shockwaves through his already shattered body. His vision narrowed. His breath came in ragged gasps. Move or die. Kael'thra struck his chest, sending him skidding across the sand. He crashed into the arena wall, bones cracking audibly. The crowd roared approval. She advanced, measured and unstoppable. This is cruelty, she said, looming over him. You prolong your suffering for pride. Jonah laughed weakly, sliding down the wall to a sitting position. No, he said. I passed pride about 10 minutes ago. He looked up at her, eyes bloodshot but clear. This is habit. She hesitated. Explain. We don't stop when things hurt, Jonah said. We stop when there's nothing left to lose. He dragged himself upright again, using the wall for support. And I lost everything the moment I walked into this arena. Kael'thra's blades wavered, just a fraction. She struck again. This time Jonah didn't dodge. The blade pierced his side, sliding between ribs. Pain exploded, nearly stealing his consciousness entirely. He cried out, falling to one knee. The crowd screamed in triumph. Kael'thra leaned close, her voice low. Stay down, she said, almost pleading. You have proven your point. Jonah looked up at her, blood bubbling at his lips. No, he whispered. With a sudden, desperate motion, he wrapped his arm around her blade arm and pulled himself closer, impaling himself further to close the distance. The crowd gasped in horror. Jonah raised his good hand and pressed it flat against her chest. There was a flash of light. Kael'thra screamed as an electromagnetic pulse ripped through her armor systems, shutting down her exoskeletal enhancements. Her blades fizzled and died. She stumbled backward, collapsing to one knee. The arena was deathly quiet. Jonah fell forward onto his hands, shaking violently. His improvised EMP device, illegal, desperate and devastating, sparked once and went dark. He forced himself upright. Bleeding. Swaying. Smiling. Kael'thra stared up at him, stunned. Stripped of her enhancements, she was still powerful, but no longer invincible. You planned this, she said in disbelief. Jonah shrugged weakly. Planned is a strong word. He extended a trembling hand toward her. This is where you decide, he said. Kill me. Or stand up, and admit we're not what you thought. For the first time in her long, blood-soaked career, Kael'thra felt the weight of a choice she could not overpower. Slowly, very slowly, she took his hand. The arena exploded. Not with violence. With shock. Medical teams rushed in. Jonah collapsed the moment they reached him, consciousness finally slipping away as hands worked frantically to keep him alive. As darkness claimed him, he heard one last sound. Kael'thra's voice carried across the arena. The duel is not complete, she declared. The human still stands. When Jonah awoke days later, he was in a medical chamber overlooking the Karzun skyline. His body ached in ways he hadn't known were possible. Kael'thra stood by the window, her armor removed, her posture less rigid. You should not have survived, she said without turning. Jonah groaned. Yeah. Heard that one too. She faced him then, studying him with something dangerously close to respect. My people believed strength was domination, she said. You taught us otherwise. He managed a tired smile. Happy to help. The Virex Dominion would later sign a treaty, not out of fear but caution. Humanity would not be ruled easily. As Kael'thra prepared to leave, she paused at the doorway. "When you stood back up," she said, "I knew we had misjudged your kind." Jonah closed his eyes, exhausted but alive. "Get used to it," he murmured. "We do that a lot." And somewhere in the depths of the ancient arena, the bedrock pulsed, quietly recording the moment an empire learned that humans were never defined by how hard they fell, only by how often they stood back up.